Hello and welcome to Figure Skating Mess. Russian girls have been dominating the women's figure skating during the last decade. However, since Russia's dictator Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine, Russian athletes are banned from international competitions, and instead Russia are hosting their own domestic events. This video is dedicated to the Russian female figure skaters. We will go through every single one of them and predict their future. Who will continue skating? Who will dominate this domestic season? Who will be able to make a comeback once the ban is lifted, and who will be too injured to ever make it back on the ice? Because the skaters do have a quick expiration date. And now that the Russian test skates have been done, I think we got a better look on what's to come. Let's begin with 3A, Alexandra, Alyona and Anna, the three girls who dominated the 2018-2019 junior circus and after that have been big names on the senior stage. The only skater from that trio who participated at the test skates was Alexandra Trusova, because the other ones were too injured, and Sasha herself only skated the short program due to a back injury. And her coaching team actually stated that they were prepared to not let her skate at all. And it was Sasha herself who wanted so badly to go out on the ice because of her fans. And if her coaching team are so worried about her health that they want to prohibit her to skate, then she must have a severe injury, because those coaches, let's say, they're not the most careful when it comes to injuries. And she apparently barely skated the weeks coming up to this test skate, so it's quite uncertain if she will even be able to compete in the domestic competitions. Yes, it's 1 month left, but that back injury sounds severe, and even if she is able to compete, the question is on what level. She's known for her quads, she's the quad queen, but will she have time to regain them with such an injury? Furthermore, will she be able to skate at her former level once the ban is lifted, let's say in a year? Just for the sake of this video, I know that might not be the case, but it's a possibility, so I'm basing my analysis on that. 1 year ahead in the future, she will be 19, and we all know about the ETERI expiration date. The girls peak at 15, 16 and then start to fall apart around 17, thus ending their career at 17, 18, 19 years old. And in fact, no female from that camp has ever competed in their 20s. Not a single one. That is absurd. So the number really aren't in Sasha's favor. But I do hope, of course, she will be able to make a comeback. She's such a cool, edgy character, and I think she herself also wants to continue skating, because she hasn't won a big senior gold medal yet. She has 2 European bronze medals, 1 world bronze medal and an Olympic silver, and yeah, that's not a bad record, but I think she wants that gold, and thus she has a motivation to continue figure skating. However, even if she managed to compete internationally next season, it probably won't be on the same level as before. She'll probably do less quads and they will be less stable, and since she isn't the most artistic skater, that might be a huge setback for her. I will add though that I did appreciate this short program that she delivered at the test skates. I think it's one of her best when it comes to her being in a character. I really think that witchy theme suits her, and I think it's something they should continue discovering. While editing this video, the news broke that Sasha is leaving Untitled Chapter for Svetlana Sokolovskaya, the coach where her boyfriend Mark Kondratyuk also trains, and I'm honestly shocked that it took her this long to leave. We all thought she was gonna say bye Terry right after the Olympics because of what happened there, but she stayed all through summer, got new programs, show the short one at the test games, and then bam, leaving. And I think it's an excellent decision of her to leave, because it was stated that the reason of leaving was that the coaches didn't adapt the training to her injuries, and that the amount of workload actually aggravated her injuries. And that sounds very much alike the Untitled Chapter methods that we know. The method is work, 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 train, train, train until you break, and even train while you are in the middle of falling apart. So with this coach, I actually think that Sasha will have a better chance of making it back to the international stage once Russia is allowed to, and maybe she won't do the domestic competitions either. I think that would be a good choice for her, that she maybe is allowed to make now under a new coach, because I think it would be the best for her body would be to rest and heal right now. However, I want her to keep the short program because those witchy vibes really suited her. Okay, let's move on to Anna Sherbakova, who I am 95% sure is gonna retire. I know, people have counted out Anna countless of times, and yet she's proven us all wrong, doing a comeback, winning world championships, winning Olympic gold. She probably even won Europeans 2022 because, well, she was second after Camila, and Camila's doping test was actually positive before the Europeans. However, there is just a limited amount of times you can cross the boundaries of your body, and I think Anna has crossed those lines already too many times, and it doesn't matter how much you want to continue, how much willpower and mental game you have if your body is broken. And Anna is also the one who has been with Eteri the longest, and thus have endured that training that seems to break down the girl so quickly the longest. And right now she's dealing with that knee injury. She recently had surgery, and therefore she will not be competing at this domestic season. But I also think it's very unlikely for her to do a comeback next season, because let's say once again that Russia are allowed to compete internationally next season, then she will also be 19. And once again, very few skaters from that cap have stayed competitive at 19 years old. And probably 1 year in the future there will be younger, less injured girls who will perform better than her. And I also think because Anna has won everything yet, she doesn't have that extra drive that makes her push her body over the limit over and over again. That drive might not be as strong because she has already achieved so much, and why risk injuring your body permanently even more? Hear me out, okay? I absolutely do not want her to retire. I think it's terrible always when athletes, especially young athletes, are forced to quit their sport they love so much because of injuries. But unfortunately, that's the reality of these skaters. Which is a shame, because I would have loved to see Anna continuing and developing over time. She always gives 110% at competition. She has a magnificent mental power and an ability to perform at the top of her level under pressure, when it's the most vital for her to do so. But once again, there's only so far your mind will take you. Sooner or later, your body will be in the way. Over to the last of these three iconic girls, Aliona Castornaya. Name a skater who has been more unlucky than her during the last 2 years. She wins European Championships 2020, and right after that COVID hits, which robs her of a certain World Championship medal, which probably even would have been a gold. Then she switches coaches and gets COVID, which in combination with an injury prevents her to skate for a whole season. Then she switches back to a Teddy who humiliates her and whose coaching staff shit talk her in the media. Then she breaks her arm, recovers, breaks her other arm just to get kicked out of the Eteri Tuperitse camp. She then switches to a new coach who she seems to have a great bond with. They seem to get along, but then she's forced to do a hip operation because she is so severely injured after the years with Eteri Tuperitse. And therefore she couldn't be at these test skates, and she will have a very long recovery. So she will not compete at all this season. But the big question is, will we ever see her again at international events? Because next season she will be 20 years old. And remember, no one who has skated for Eteri has skated competitively in their 20s. Those are not good numbers to work with. But I hope for the love of figure skating that she will be the girl that breaks that pattern. I think the whole figure skating world wants that to happen because she's so loved, so appreciated by the fans because of her musicality and charisma and skating skills. And Aliona herself also seems very determined to get back on that ice. She has mentioned that, well, Yelizaveta Tuktamishova doesn't feel aged, so why should I? It seems like she wants to be in the sport for the long run, and maybe now when she is with a new coach, she might actually be the girl who breaks that horrible trend of not making it to her 20s as a competitive skater. Some other thing that speak in her favor is that she hasn't been that long with Eteri Tuperitse. There are girls who have been, like Anna Sherbakova, way longer. She also has good skating skills and good jumping technique. And in addition to that, she might also have been the one who listened most to her body. Because last season, as you know, the coaching staff talked dirty about her in the press. And that was because they thought she didn't give it all during the training, and she didn't do everything that they asked her to do. Because, well, she listened to her body and didn't want to break. So I think all of those things speak in her favor, and wouldn't it be wonderful to have her back at competition? She's such a gem, and it would be such a shame for her to have this short, erratic career that she, until this moment, unfortunately has had. Whew, let's take a break from the short careers of the Eteri Tuperitse girls and move on to the opposite. Yelizaveta Tuktamishova, also known as Lisa, or even better known as the Empress. She's 25 years old and she participated at the test skates. She did have a bit of a cold before, so she wasn't at her best shape. Still, she delivered 2 of her trademark triple axels. The landing weren't the most beautiful, but still they existed. So I think she will have a great season at the domestic competitions. I also think out of these 4 skaters I've discussed, she's the one who's most likely to actually make a comeback at the international stage, because she has proven year after year after year that she can stay competitive with the very best. She won World Championships 2015 and silver at Worlds 2021, and between those years she didn't have the opportunity to compete at all at big championships because there were so many younger girls who took her spot. But she has continued to skate and stay competitive, and that has rewarded her. And I think the secret is, first of all, good technique, but also a healthy attitude to the sport. She says that we have one life and it's necessary to spend it in such a way that later you don't regret that you ruined your whole life for the sake of figure skating and as a result didn't live. I think this shows that she doesn't want to risk her health because of the sport, which unfortunately is the case with athletic girls. And she also stated that as long as everything is fine with my body, as long as I feel the desire and strength to continue skating, jumping, improving, I want to show it. And well, I think it's a great possibility to see her in a year or so at the international stage if Russia are allowed back. Now let's go back to the athletic girls who were first year seniors last season. Camila, Maya and Daria. We have to begin with Camila Valira, whose career took a U-turn when illegal substances were found in her blood before the Olympics. So her career depends on that doping verdict that is gonna take place in October. Right now it's looking pretty dark for her because it seems like the B sample were positive too. The question is how severe of a punishment she's gonna get, because those doping tests were taken when she was 15. So maybe it's the coaches who should be punished more, but still she did have illegal substances in her blood, so she should get some sort of a punishment. The question is, for how long will she be banned from competitions? I think there's a big possibility that she's gonna be banned for next season. So even if Russia are allowed to compete internationally, maybe she won't, but she might be able to do a comeback the season after that. So that will be 2 years in the future. Then she will be 18, which is a critical age for the athletic girls. But at the same time, if she isn't allowed to compete for 2 years, well, she will be able to rest her body, so she might still be in a good shape and not too injured. But even if she's currently being investigated for doping violations, she's allowed to compete at domestic events in Russia. She participated at the test skates, where she, due to some minor injuries, performed not at her usual level. She didn't do a triple axel nor any quads, but it's so surreal to me that she's allowed at this event when she is investigated for doping. And none of the commentators mentioned once the doping controversy. They spoke of her as an Olympic gold medalist from the team event. And the same thing with other Russians who represented them at the team event at the Olympics. They spoke of them as Olympic gold medalists too, when they haven't even received the medals because of the doping scandal, and they are likely not to ever get them because Camila's positive doping test are bound to make them disqualified. And it becomes even more surreal at her free skate, which is inspired by the doping scandal. It starts off with American journalists talking about it, and Camila is covering her ears, and then the program ensues, and it's very sad and dramatic, and it ends with Camila covering her face just as she did when she walked through the media at the Olympics. So not only does her coaches make her take illegal substances, because of course it wasn't Camila herself, a 15-year-old, that sought out these drugs. We know that at the Untitled camp they are very strict with what they eat and what they put into their bodies. It's all monitored, every single gram is important, so of course it was something that was given to her. So not only did her coaches make her take illegal substances, which caused the doping scandal at the Olympics, where they, by the way, didn't care for her a single bit because they left her all alone with the media when they should have been there and supported her. Not only that, then they make her relive that traumatic experience over and over again in a free skate, and you could see in her eyes when the program ended, it was real pain in those eyes. And she even said herself that it was like being back at the Olympics. How cruel do you have to be to do that to a child? Maybe the most horrible thing is that Camila doesn't seem to realize that it was the adults around her, her coaches, that let her down. It was them who did her wrong by putting her in that situation and leaving her all alone with the media instead of being there for her. But instead, it is the Western media who is portrayed as evil and cruel, and how can they do that to such a sweet, innocent child? But like, it wasn't Western media that caused this scandal, it was the fact that she was caught doping, and of course the media is going to react because Camila was described as the biggest face of figure skating at the Olympics. She was such a wonder child, a star, so brilliant, so of course if she is caught having taken illegal drugs in the middle of the Olympics, there is bound to be a huge outrage from the media. That is a natural reaction. What is unfathomable is that the lack of reaction from Russian media, especially towards her coaches who are responsible. But it seems like Russian state media are living in their own parallel world. Well, doping is perfectly fine, and if someone is caught with doping, it certainly isn't true. It's just the Western world who wanna bring Russia down. And Camila is honestly used as Russian state propaganda as a symbol of how horribly the Western world is treating Russia, how absurd they are. And it seems like Camila has absolutely no idea on what is actually going on in her life and the world in general. She even said that her favorite day was when she met Vladimir Putin. And that was after the war had started in Ukraine. That was after he invaded Ukraine and currently is killing thousands of civilians, forcing the Ukrainians to flee their own country. She has to be completely disillusionized to say that meeting the man who caused this horrible war was the best memory in her life. Whew. Now let's move on to Maja Hramich, who didn't participate at the test games due to a broken arm. By the way, out of the 6 girls that were coached by Eteri Tutberidze as seniors last season, only one of them were able to participate fully at these test games because Sasha, she only skated in the short program and shouldn't even have been skating that according to her own coaches. So out of the 6 senior girls that Eteri coached last season, only one of them was able to compete here, and that was Camila Valerieva, the girl caught with illegal substances in her body. What an honorable and lovely coach Eteri Tutberidze truly is. But back to Maja Hramich, who broke her arm Aliona Kasternaya style, but luckily it wasn't her leg or back who's injured, so it looks like she's gonna be able to compete this season. She is listed at 2 of Russia's domestic Grand Prix events. However, due to a short amount of training because of a broken arm, she might not be able to be in her best shape. And if Russia is allowed to compete internationally next season, then Maja will be 17, which is right at that age when the skaters from Eteri Tutberidze start to fall apart. So she will probably be able to participate internationally at Grand Prix events, but I personally think it's gonna be hard for her to make it to international championships because they will likely be younger, less injured skaters and older skaters like Lisa, Sasha or Aliona who have a bigger name in the skating world, because Maja herself hasn't really won a big international medal yet. She hasn't had a chance to make a real name of herself. But who knows, things change really quickly in figure skating in Russia. Maybe she will be the next Olympic gold medal, we don't know. But then we have Daria Usachova. Dear Daria, who injured her hip in such a heartbreaking way at a warm-up at Grand Prix last season. She was forced to be carried out and she hasn't competed ever since. She is back on the ice though, but it has been a very long recovery because the injury was so severe, and she wasn't at the test skates either. But she is though listed as someone who will compete at the Russian domestic Grand Prix. But since her injury was so severe and she wasn't good enough to be at the test skates, I think she will not be able to perform at her best level at the Grand Prix. However, if we will move one season ahead, she do have a good chance of coming back internationally if Russia are allowed back. But I think just as with Maja, it's gonna be hard for her to make it to big championships because, yeah, you know, younger skaters that are less injured and older skaters who are more famous. Also, Daria Usachova doesn't have any Ultra C elements. Maja has a quad toe, and it's almost a must if you are from Russia to have an Ultra C elements if you want to get to international championships. However, she do have a wonderful musicality, and in fact her short program to Never Enough last year was on my top 10 list of favorite short program that season. It was really lovely and moving, so I do hope she will be able to come back and skate internationally again. Now let's move on to the first year seniors. Sofia Muravio, Sofia Samodelkina and Adelia Petrossian, and actually only one of these girls is being coached by Eteri Tutberidze, which is really unusual because during the last decade almost every new promising skater has been from that camp. Let's begin with Sofia Muravio, who's coached by Yevgeny Plushenko. And she's someone who I will think have a great domestic season. She participated at the test skates. She did have an injury over the summer, so her triple axels weren't perfect. it was a fall and a step out, but I think she can regain them when the competitions begin in a month. I also think she's one of the skaters who have the greatest chance of competing internationally when Russia is allowed to. Next year she will be 17, but she isn't skating for Adelia. She is skating for Evgeny Plushenko, which we admittedly do not know how his skater do in the long run because he's such a new coach, but he has skated for Alexei Mishin, who is the coach of Yelizaveta Tuktamysheva. So those are some good signs, and he also had stated that he doesn't approve of Italian skaters being forced to quit their career so early on because of injuries, and that he wants his skater to have a long career. So we hope that will be true, because I really enjoy her. She has a very sensitive to the music and do have great skating skills. Then we have another Sofia Samodelkina, who this summer switched coaches from Sergei Davidov to Svetlana Sokolovskaya, the same coach that Sasha is training with now. She also participated at the test skates. She performed a clean triple axel but fell on a quad loop, and then she didn't attempt any other quad jumps, but we saw from last season that she has performed the quad toe multiple times, and I think she's gonna have a wonderful domestic season because of those Ultra C elements and her young age. And just as with the other Sofia, she is one of the girls who are most likely to succeed when Russia is allowed to compete again internationally, because she will only be 16 next year and she has those Ultra C elements. Then of course we do have an Untitled skater, Adelia Petrossian. She also participated at the test skates. She showed clean quadruple toe, which was the first time for her, but she fell on her signature quad loop. And once again, I think she will have a great domestic season since she's only 15 and is not too injured for an Italian skater, and she's gonna do well when Russia is allowed back, because next year she will only be 16 and she has quadruple jumps and also a great musicality that is bound to give her high PCS scores, in addition with already being an Italian girl. Let's finish off this list with Ksenia Sinitsina, an 18-year-old girl who participated at Grand Prix last year. She didn't get any medals, so she isn't that famous, but I have absolutely no idea what is happening to her. She wasn't at test skates, she isn't assigned any domestic competitions. I don't know, is she injured? Is she taking a break? Is she retiring? I couldn't find any information at all, so if you know, please let me know, because she's very lovely. She's a lovely skater, and she also had the most gorgeous dress last year. That was every girl who would have been competing internationally at a senior level this season if it wasn't for the ban on Russian athletes due to the war. I won't be covering any of the juniors. I know they have a lot of promising juniors like Sofia Muravio, Veronika Zhilina and so on, but they won't be eligible for senior competitions until 2025 due to the new age rule. And 3 years ahead in the future, that is too much to predict things when it comes to Russian figure skating, because anything can and will happen, so it's impossible to predict that far into the future. But please write in the comments down below what your predictions are for the current Russian seniors. I would love to know it and discuss that with you. And of course, I wish all of the skaters a long and healthy career, and I do hope we will be able to see all of them again on the competitive ice. That was everything for today, and until you see me next time, take care. Bye!